It seems like the most useful frames of reference are those that have the least variance, right? The most fixed frames of reference. You described the North Star, right?
Mhm.
That's what the reason the North Star is useful is because it
Yeah.
stays in one position and you can orient yourself around it.
And that's
right?
true for 6,000 years.
Yeah, so it's the constancy. So I was wondering if there's a connection here between the constancy or fixity of something like the North Star as a frame of reference that's useful for navigation, and the constancy of mathematical constants.
Oh, yeah.
And then by extension, you know where I want to go with this is like Bitcoin. For the first time in human history, we have a monetary constant. We've never had a fixed supply anything. It's a asset constant, if you will, right? There's never been something that has a perfectly fixed supply. We don't know the supply of anything other than Bitcoin with perfect certainty.
But the paradox within that is it can still be divided infinitely.
Yes, divided infinitely, but never inflated. And you would be surprised how many people that confuses the shit out of.
It's like multiplication and
Yes,
division.
yes.
It's the same thing.
I've seen so many dumb politicians be like, "Oh, Bitcoin's not scarce. You can divide it infinitely." And it's like, "Oh man, it's the whole slicing the pizza." Into,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it doesn't make more pizza.
Exactly.
It just cuts.
It's really not
pizza.
complicated.
It's not complicated.
Yeah. What is there a connection there between like the utility of a frame of reference? Is it based on its constancy or fixity? And then does that relate to mathematical constants? Does that relate to the constancy of 21 million Bitcoin as being a more optimal money?
I believe our entire experience in this U inverse is based on ratio.
Okay.
Ratio is what matters, because without context, and context is actually a reference to ratio.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a surprise that geometricians throughout history became the philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can point to so many. Aristophanes, Democritus, you can go all the way through the Greek philosophers, but actually, I wish I could name the ones that were in the Egyptian mystery schools, but they were not nameable because they were in mystery schools. That's the whole point. The Egyptian mystery schools in the land of Chem were teaching about the black arts. Now, it wasn't because it was necessarily black skin, although there were black skinned people there. The Kushite people were black. But it doesn't reference that. What it's referencing is the unknown, the absorption versus the reflection. We study in alchemy, and alchemy is from that word al, which is a word for God, right? Al or the, El, it's like El in Spanish. Chem is this black. Chemistry is from that, the black arts. It's from the land of Chem. They thought it was because Chem was a reference to the black soil, that it used to be very fertile. But we don't remember that now because it's just all sand for the most part, unless you're right next to the Nile River. But the truth of it is, I believe that this world is actually about us learning about our darkness within and being able to figure out how to subdue it and allow the supersedence of love over and above this judgment aspect, right? So it becomes unconditional, and we start to see the world in a very different light. Our relationships change. The people that come into our life change. Our relationships are all about soul alchemy. Into me, see into me. So that's what intimacy is. You see into your partner, you see a reflection somehow of you that you can now love. And as she can love you, she can teach you how to love that aspect of yourself. And it could be flipped the other way around, male and female. It doesn't really matter. But this is this separation that then becomes whole into divine union. So you asked about frequency. I talked about the two snakes. So there's something called the Ida and the Pingala. Well, in music, we have this whole controversy amongst those in the musical community that are into the geometry. They talk about, no, it's got to be 432 hertz. I'm like, no, it's 528 hertz. You may have heard of these, right? 528 hertz, some people say, that's the heart frequency. No, 432 is the perfection of the mathematics. Well, the funny part about it, actually, is that what if I told you they're part of the same scale? They're perfectly part of the same scale. 432 hertz in a 12-note scale is the Ida, the one snake. So the snake would be how you describe a sine cosine wave, exactly how music resonates when you're looking at it through an oscilloscope. But 528 hertz is a note in a 24 note separation of the exact same scale.
It's a different denominator.
That's right. And that is the Pingala. The two are part of the same 24 note quarter tone scale, which then unites all Western music and all pentatonic scales in indigenous peoples into one scale. The Egyptians use a 24 note scale. The Indians use 24 note scale. The Vedic mathematicians, the prime number patterns based on 24. Every prime number that's over 5 will always square to a multiple of 24 plus 1 without exception.
Wow.
It's all about 24ness. Buckminster Fuller teaches us about the cube octahedron, the vector equilibrium, the one geometric form that has equidistance between the center point and every vertex of it. That cuboctahedral structure is perfection. And what that does is actually giving us another way of looking at pi. It's triangles and squares, and then one adjacent side, 3, 1, 4. 3, 1, 4, 3, 1, 4, all the way around it, 14 sides, 24 edges, and 12 vertices. The geometry of what we experience is all based on ratio. So without the context of some scale of reference, you cannot perceive anything. Without the context of pain, how can you perceive pleasure?
Right.
You have to know the opposite thereof. That's why learning through opposites becomes such a critical aspect of this game. The learning through opposites provides the context, which is really just another way of saying providing the ratio relationships.
Wow. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.